Private investigator or polygraph examiner, which is best for you? Let's find out. Welcome to Inside the Polygraph. I'm your host, David Goldberg, expert polygraph examiner. Join me as I and my guests break down the facts, fictions of polygraph testing, law enforcement, and so much more. Real cases, real conversations. The truth is always revealed inside the polygraph. This question I often get asked, and I'm sure you might even ask yourself. Should you hire a private investigator or hire a polygraph examiner for infidelity issues? I'm going to tell you the difference, and you ultimately will make the ultimate decision. As I always tell people, your decision is you, and I'm not here to tell you that you need to do it this way or that way, because ultimately, at the very end, you and your decision, it's your life. However, the information I provide should help you make that decision more affirmative. Hiring a private investigator. Let's talk about them first, and then we'll get into polygraph examiners. But before we get started, I want to read a disclaimer first, and then we will talk about it. First and foremost, I am not here to mention any names in reference to polygraph businesses, private investigator businesses, polygraph examiners' names, nor private investigator firms or their names. I'm also not going to tell you whether a certain polygraph examiner, polygraph business, or private investigator or private investigator firm is good, bad, stay away, or go to them. That's not what this episode is about, nor are any of my episodes about. This is educational, informational purposes only. I'm also not going to tell you that you need to go to the polygraph examiner or you need to go directly to the private investigator for your issue. As I said in the very beginning, ultimately, the decision should be made up to you. Let's begin. Hiring a private investigator, what are they? A lot of times, they are individuals that want to be private detectives, and they want to get into that field because they've either watched many television shows, they think it's so cool, they think they can make thousands and millions of dollars and drive fancy cars and all kinds of things and get big, huge, large cases and be that ultimate PI. And they get into that field ultimately to find out it's not what you see on TV. Also, a lot of times private investigators are retired police detectives, prior police officers that are retired, and they're either retired, they're bored, or they've been hired by attorneys, or they have branched out and opened up their own small business, and that's what they do. But let's start out as to how you become a private investigator or private detective first. First and foremost, you have to go to a school in majority of the states. You can't just say I'm a private detective. Number of states actually make you become licensed, and then you have to be insured and sometimes bonded because of the laws of that state. So you go to a school. The schools can range anywhere from 3 days, 5 days, and maybe sometimes 3 weeks. All depends on the schools itself. And of course, they teach you the laws. They teach you what you can and can't do as a private investigator. They teach you surveillance. They teach you report writing. And they teach you, certain things, photography, evidence collecting and stuff like that. Then afterwards, after that 3 days, 5 days, or 3-week time period, you then become what they say is a private investigator. They give you a nice, pretty certificate. And then, of course, you apply to your state, say that you graduated from a school, and then you get a little ID card that says you're now a PI, and hopefully you are licensed and insured, and you either work for yourself or you work for an agency. Now, how does it work when it comes to infidelity, ladies and gentlemen? And I'll tell you. Let's say you call a private investigator or you call an agency up and you say to them, hey, I think or I suspect that my significant other is cheating. And they say, okay, we do that. Absolutely. We're the #1 private investigator company or firm in town. We do this all the time. Absolutely. Come into our office and we'll tell you what we can do for you. So you come into their office. They have paperwork that you're going to fill out, contractual paperwork, obviously, and they're going to ask for a retainer fee. That retainer fee can be anywhere from $1,000, $1,500 on up, and they hourly charge will be anywhere from $50 to maybe $75 or $50 to $150 an hour. And then they're going to tell you what they're going to do. They're going to track your significant other. They'll GPS your significant other. They'll follow them. They'll surveil them. And then hopefully what they'll do is hopefully they will catch them in an inappropriate manner or photograph them or videotape them with the other person that's not you. That means that they'll catch them in the presence of another person that's not you, the significant other, whether you're married, in a relationship, or whatever relationship you're in. They will hopefully catch them in that area that they're not supposed to be at, and with that other person, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's in the car, whether it's at a pool, whether it's at a movie theater, whether it's wherever. However, this is what I want to tell everyone before you even consider hiring a private investigator. Have you been accused of one of the following in your life, such as infidelity, custody matters, CPS investigations, or serious criminal matters that you're currently being investigated for? At Executive Protection Group Polygraph Service, we have been helping thousands of individuals for over 24 years, no matter who you are or what you have been accused of, with the highest accuracy, integrity, and overall compassion to everyone's needs. We are not your typical polygraph or lie detection service. At Executive Protection Group Polygraph Service, we are certified experts recognized in courts throughout the country, and we stand by our promise to give you full closure and all your needed answers. Call at 757-495-1301 and visit our website at www.executiveprotectiongrp.com to get started. Let's say, hypothetically, that a private investigator is very good at what they do, and they have surveilled your significant other. They catch that significant other with another person, whether it's male, female, okay, whatever. And they catch them whether it's in a car, whether they walk into a hotel room, whether they walk into a movie theater, or they're sitting in a restaurant, and they take video and they take photographs of that individual. And then they bring it to you and they say, yep, we caught him with that person. Does that evidence of that photograph indicate to you that your significant other engaged in inappropriate physical, sexual contact with that other person if that photograph or video does not indicate that? The answer, ladies and gentlemen, is no. And here's the other thing that I'm going to tell you about private investigators. It is about sheer luck. That means that they could be surveilling your significant other. They could be waiting and waiting and waiting. And ultimately, that money you're spending, $50, $75, $150 an hour, out of your retainer fee could be slowly dwindling away. It's like putting money in a slot machine and you're constantly pulling the lever or you're constantly pressing those buttons and hoping that the big jackpot's going to hit, but it doesn't, so you keep feeding that money. And you're constantly feeding that money into the private investigator in hopes of that ultimate aha moment, and it doesn't happen. And so they get you that photograph of, let's say, that significant other pulling up into a hotel, and that's all you get, a photograph of your significant other pulling up in front of the Holiday Inn, Marriott, whatever, and that's all, getting out and going in. That's all they get. And then coming out by themselves and no one else coming out with them. Again, does that photograph indicate that they engaged in any inappropriate physical sexual acts with another partner? You can assume, and assumptions do not and are not admitted in any legal trial, court hearing, divorce, or any kind of situation whatsoever. So you got a nice pretty photograph or video of them pulling into a hotel, parking lot, pool hall, restaurant, but you don't have any indication of physical sexual contact. And you may question them, and they may do what? Lie, tell you they were meeting someone, whatever. Or let's say you do catch them with someone in their car or at a hotel or at a restaurant, and what they do is what? Oh, this is a coworker, it's a friend, it's someone's sister, I was giving them a ride. But you don't have, again, any photograph, any evidence of them engaging in any physical sexual acts. So you've wasted a lot of money, a lot of time, and all you have is things you assume or things you can question, but you don't have anything. Now, let's go to the point of after that, you only have a nice photograph, if you're lucky, and again, it's about proper luck and time in reference to the private investigator. And there's some excellent private investigators out there, don't get me wrong, and there are some really shitty ones out there that I've seen and then I've had to help afterwards because they didn't get anything. And I've seen the results of what they gave clients of just that photograph, blurry, or video of just, like I mentioned, them pulling up into a parking lot, a restaurant, but nothing else, after thousands of dollars were spent. So let's say you hire an experienced polygraph examiner. And I always say experience, and I say that, and I'll repeat that 1,000 times on this podcast, because there are bad, poor, inexperienced examiners out there that you can also get bad results from. But let's say you hire an experienced examiner like myself. Here's how it works, ladies and gentlemen. Sure, the individual can lie, absolutely, and say the same thing. They were a friend, they were a coworker, I was giving the sister a ride, whatever. However, it's going to be verified more so on the polygraph versus just a photograph. And the verification will determine whether or not it's deceptive or truth based on what they tell you. The other thing, ladies and gentlemen, is if in fact they did engage in physical sexual acts and the examiner finds out, you, as the significant other, you're going to get those answers and you're going to be able to make definitive decisions that's going to improve what you want to do moving forward in either your relationship, getting therapy, counseling, or ending a relationship that you know is not going to go any further because of what happened. And that might be the difference between hiring a private investigator versus getting an experienced polygraph examination. I can tell you now, based on my experience, in 3 hours, I will give a client more and in less amount of money that they have spent on a private investigator, waiting maybe weeks, months, whatever, and I will give them more and more closure in 3 hours than they will spending thousands of dollars in a week's time, and maybe sometimes even longer, in hopes of that aha moment in a photograph or in a video. So what I'm trying to get at, ladies and gentlemen, is do your due diligence in everything you do in life in reference to hiring whomever, whether it's a polygraph examiner, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a private investigator, for whatever matter you're trying to resolve. However, don't rely on just a photograph unless you absolutely 100% or video catch them in the act. Because unless it's catch them in the act of an inappropriate physical sexual contact, them being with another significant other than you is not going to prove anything other than they were with someone other than you, which is wrong. Don't get me wrong. It's wrong being with someone that's not you. However, it doesn't prove they did anything wrong other than that being with someone not you. It doesn't prove that they did anything with that person. A polygraph can prove otherwise. It can prove everything you need to really clarify and know. So think real hard before you decide on the question that I get asked a lot. Should I go with a private investigator for my answers, or should I go with a polygraph examiner? I always say it's up to you, but I do say I present the facts of which is the pros and the cons of both. If you want to learn more and read more about this information, click the link below to read my blog. Thanks so much for listening. If you truly liked what you heard today, please be sure to rate the show, share with others, and subscribe for more episodes.